Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. This is James from MapTech. Just going to give folks a few more minutes to join here, and then we will go ahead and get started. Alrighty, well, I have 2 o'clock here on my clock, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Just as a reminder, we are going to be recording all of these as well as sharing them to our website. If you give us just a couple of weeks probably to get that turned around, these will be put up on the website to view later. If you're having any issues, just reach out to me separately and I can figure out a way to get any of the previous tool tips over to you and share those internally as you need to. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay and see the PowerPoint screen that is up here. If anyone's having any issues or if you're not hearing or seeing anything, please just shoot me a quick chat to let me know. If I don't hear anything, I will assume that everything is moving smoothly here. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our PVNG Tooltips webinar today. As a reminder, we'll be doing a monthly webinar highlighting features and functionality within PVNG that could be helpful to our user base. The goal is going to be to keep these around 10 minutes. I know everyone has busy schedules. I think based on some suggestions from clients, our next one in September, we might do a bit of a longer session and go over a few more topics. We're still kind of determining what we want to do there, but some of the features here are going to be sort of well known. So apologies, if we're going over something that you're already familiar with, but please reach out to Kim or myself if you do have any suggestions for those future webinars. So today's going to be vendor management. Really what we're going to talk about is the setup process, managing your vendors, 1099 processing, controls around who can access this information, who can edit it, as well as just a couple of little features that you may not be aware of that can be utilized throughout this process. So not a whole lot to show here from a PowerPoint standpoint. We'll kind of go through this in the live demo. So let's go ahead and jump over to PVNG. Make sure I'm sharing the right screen here. All right. So everyone should be able to see the PVNG main sort of vendor layout here. Of course, within accounts payable, we have our vendors menu here. We're going to go through each one of these and the various options within there. So first, I'm just going to kind of talk about the vendor setup process and the various fields there. So we're going to use Mancini's as our example today. The basic information or basic vendor information is going to include name, ID, address, terms, contact information, and various tax designations here. So if it is a 1099 vendor, we want to make sure we designate it as such down here, as well as supplying which tax category would apply to this particular vendor. Outside of just the general information, the remittance information tab here, I'm going to breeze through this, but this is because it's typically the same as the vendor information that's added here, but this allows you to include separate information of where this remittance should be sent if it is different from what's entered for that vendor. The auto distribution here, this is a cool tool that can be utilized with the GL coding during the invoice entry process here. So anytime you set this up for a vendor, you can apply it when entering a new invoice. And essentially it's a template that can help with GL coding. So here for any one of your vendors, as well as for intercompany transactions, so we can see here the difference just being we now have this company drop down if you want to utilize this for intercompany. But basically, you're going to either type in an account number or account name from your chart and then designate a percent split. So right now we just have 100% for this vendor going to cost of food sales, but you get the picture. It could be 50-50, it could be 25-25-25, however you kind of want to set that up. You're able to do so. And then when I go in to enter a new invoice here, we can see that if I want to apply that, when I enter a invoice amount, let's do 1,000, it'll ask me to utilize that auto distribution and apply that. So it's going to take the percent split for that full dollar amount. You don't always have to use it. You can see you can set it up and then tell the system no if you don't want to go that route, but just a nice little feature to touch on there if you're not using that today. Let's get back into Mancini's here. On the payment side, this is going to control how this vendor is paid. So we do have flexible payment options within PVNG. If you're going to utilize ACH payments for this particular vendor, you designate it as such. We basically can create an ACH file to match your bank specs. So that would then be produced and sent to the bank. Check, obviously, pretty self-explanatory. Just going to go ahead and print and mail those checks. One thing I want to touch on, though, is the third party here. So we do have the ability to integrate with third-party payment providers if that's something you're exploring at all. So folks that do the virtual card programs or outsource check printing, things like that, we do have the ability to create a file, and you can either designate payment type directly within PVNG, and then we can send it to them, or we could just flag all vendors as third party, and they can do the payment decisioning on their end. But that is a process. If you aren't utilizing that today, we do connect with other providers out there to facilitate the payments. Invoices here, I can see any open invoices for the vendor that I'm selected into. And then one thing to touch on in this miscellaneous tab here, a nice way to utilize this is actually storing electronic W-9s. So we have had clients that will use this to come in and attach an image. So if you don't want to store a paper copy or have to file that away somewhere in a cabinet, you can actually digitize that, attach the image, and that'll be tied with this vendor so anyone could access that through the vendor setup here within this miscellaneous tab. So that's everything just on the vendor side. 1099, not a whole lot to show here. Essentially, this is where you're able to come in and generate the 1099s by both 1099 type, the form layout, as well as the processing year, and then you can run those for either all of your vendors or a range of those vendors. On the vendor audit side, this is going to provide a nice transparent picture of any changes that have happened to any of your vendors with both date and timestamped by user here. So just talking about some of the controls and transparency with this, it is one area that can be open to fraud potentially. So I always like to have good vendor controls in place. If I click into any one of these, I can see, again, date, time stamped by user, and what changes they made to any of the vendor fields. Since we're kind of on that topic, just so everyone knows, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the system setup here, but within your various roles that you create to control those entitlements, this is where I can come into my vendors and I can control within each one of those little menu options whether folks have the ability to view or edit detail within both of these. So that's kind of where those entitlements are controlled. Let's go back over to the vendor side. We're going to touch on the vendor inquiry here now. So this is another good search function if you want to view vendor invoice and payment information, posted invoices, outstanding balances, things like that. This is a great search feature to be able to do that. So I can come in and type in a vendor name or vendor ID. I can run it for a certain date range if I want to. If I don't select anything, it'll just pull in all transaction information. And then you can have it show outstanding balances or not. And I just click search. Now I can see all of the different transactions that have occurred. I can see my outstanding balance. I can actually drill in to see the posted invoice as well as viewing that invoice image. So you can use that as a search feature, get right down to that posted invoice as well as viewing the image. Just another way of kind of getting to that detail. There's a few different ways in PVNG to get there, but this, I think a lot of folks like to utilize this vendor inquiry search function there. The last thing here to go over are what are called vendor labels. Not sure how many folks actually utilize these, but essentially these are set up if you do still physically mail anything to vendors and you want to have a label that can be slapped onto that envelope. That's what those are stored there for. So again, probably not a ton of use case there, but if you're wondering, that's what those vendor labels are utilized for. So like I said, we want to try to keep these to around 10 to 15 minutes. Just wanted to give a quick highlight there to make sure you're aware of all the different functionality within the vendor setup side there. Stay tuned. We will be doing another webinar coming up here in September. I believe we're targeting the 28th for that. Like I said, I think we're going to keep that one or extend that one to maybe 30 or 45 minutes and cover a few other topics. We did have a release that came out a couple months ago with a few new features. Everyone should have gotten an update on that. So we might touch on some of those. And then we are targeted to do another release here in the fall with some other newer features being added. So just want to throw that in there. And please always reach out to Kim or myself if you guys have things you're looking to change in PVNG or ways it can improve. Don't hesitate to let us know about those. I think that is one of the advantages of AppTech is we are very cognizant of client needs and happy to have our development team work on features if it's going to make your life easier. So thank you everyone for joining today, and I hope you all have a great afternoon. Thank you.